Our next agenda item is the month-by-month assessment calendar, and I know Dr. Swift will do a great introduction, but I just wanted to thank the members of our planning committee for your year-long effort in working on this. So we're all so excited to see this. I know at our retreat we talked about this as a item from the board, but we appreciate all the work that went into making this look great, and we'll apologize in advance if we give any other suggestions to make it look a little better. But thank you so much for all the work you did to bring it to the table this evening. Dr. Swift.
Very good. Thank you, Madam President and trustees. You beat me to it, Madam President. I do thank the members of the Planning Committee who have worked on this and given us excellent feedback. And I want to thank members of the team. We'll begin by looking at the documents. I know that they are probably not easy to read on television, but I want to remind folks that this is posted to the website, and we will ensure that even as we may continue to make adjustments, we'll keep that updated on our website. I know Mr. Cluley will help to ensure that that's done. I heard today that it was up, so I'm glad that we started with that. We've divided the year-by-year assessment calendar. And trustees, you have copies in your packet. We divided it into elementary, middle, and high school. In the first set of documents are those state required sorts and some national, like SAT, those state and federal sorts of assessments. So you can see there for elementary that there is a common theme running with their benchmarks for reading 4 times a year, and then their beginning of the year and end of the year math that comes 2 times a year. We do use the NWEA. I believe we've done that for about 7 years in the district. That worked out well because it does also, trustees, satisfy our 3rd grade reading law that was passed last year to do the screening and the assessment required in the first 30 days of school. Then at elementary in the spring, during April, they get into, at that point, the M-STEP, and then the MI Access is really the alternative to M-STEP. So, Madam President, I already see that might be the first adjustment because that light blue one is really a special populations version of the M-STEP. So we'll talk about how to note that. Those two, then the medium blue and the light blue are really the same thing. And then M-STEP, ELA, and math in May. So that is the picture at elementary. Trustees, you do have a companion document that is your 4th page in that denotes the amount of time. This will be impossible to read on the screen, but just showing you what that document looks like. So you can see, if you would like, the amount of time that's allocated. Although we know that each child is unique, some will take 10 minutes to do it and some may take longer, of course. So we went with the time that's allotted for each of those assessments. In the green, if we'll go back to the elementary page, please, on the green part of each of these pages, you will see at the bottom the special populations assessments, and I believe that will be at the bottom of every one of your screens. And those are the assessments. WIDA, for example, is required federally, but it is only for a particular population. In that case, it is for our English language learners. So I feel like we're able to have a very clear picture of what the federal and state year at a glance looks like. The benchmarks are selected by the district, so there is some kind of overlap or crossover there, but they are required in terms of providing data and teachers having the data they need for evaluation process. So this does not cover all of the teacher in progress monitoring assessments. We'll get to a page that kind of shows a menu of those in just a bit. Let's move over to middle school. In the middle school assessments, we really look at a reading inventory right away at the beginning of the year. We also will use that toward the end of May. The common assessments are really within the content areas. So they're math, science, ELA, social studies, and those will come at the beginning of the course and at the end of the course, and that's each semester. So beginning and end of the fall semester and beginning and end of the spring semester, February, and another adjustment we might make is I'm understanding Ms. Parks and Ms. Dickinson Kelly will help us. I'm understanding that most of those common assessment post-tests really come earlier than June. Again, the MI Access, Michigan Access, is a version of the MSTEP, so I think we still see there that those are really one and the same, depending on if a child needs an alternative MSTEP there. You also see the same special populations at the bottom is the WIDA for English language learners. At high school, things are really much more course specific at high school. We still do the reading inventory right away at the beginning of the year and again at the end of the year. But the common assessments pre and post will really be anchored into the course. And so one of the questions that we've clarified is who makes those common assessments? How are they created? And we are authoring a simple FAQ document that will handle some of these questions that have come up through our assessment advisory. And I do want to pause to thank everyone on the assessment advisory. They have met 3 times in the last few weeks and had their most recent meeting on Monday afternoon. I got to be in, it was actually Monday evening, 4:30 to 6, and I got to be in the room for part of that time. Trustees, I'm just so proud in Ann Arbor that you put out the request and folks come, and we have 30, I think it was about 32 or 3, somewhere in there, that are attending so far faithfully, but we'll see over the coming months, and they represent teachers, they represent parents, and several of them have very strong credentials in statistics in that room as well, and so they bring a lot of knowledge to it. But in answer to that common question, who develops the common assessments? We do use groups of teachers, and our teachers develop the assessments. They also do the revisions on the assessments. So both ELA and math shared with me, and I checked in with some teachers that after they give each of the assessments, they use a Google Doc to share with each other what they observe during the assessment and any questions that they feel like need adjusting, and they will come back together. Math said they're looking forward to a session over this summer where they may make some adjustments to their common assessments. At high school then, particularly trustees, you already know it, but in the 11th grade year, very intensive in the spring there as you get to SAT and then also MSTEP. We are now doing the PSAT at 9th and at 10th. And that is designed and especially is helpful for our students who may not have had the opportunity to take an SAT prep course, and this really helps them to see their own profile of where their strengths are, where their challenges are, what they may need to do to get ready for that SAT. They are able then to track that over to Khan Academy so that they can do the ongoing tutorials to get ready for that big junior year. At the bottom of the high school page, you can see there the WIDA and the MI Access are the special populations assessments at the high school level. we also authored a document that came about because it felt like when we would come to planning and when we would talk with teachers, there were obviously classroom assessments that go on, and we wanted to capture a little bit of what teachers use. So we made a note over on the assessment at a glance calendar that teachers use and have the latitude and the ability to use and make decisions about the other assessments that they want to use to progress monitor in their classroom. And so this references over to this page, and I won't take the board's time to read this aloud, but I think you'll look through there and see that that teachers will use with their students a variety of these kinds of activities so that they are checking in and seeing how our students are doing. One other page is about the time. One of Trustee Gaynor's good questions, and we had actually worked with this back in the prior iteration of the assessment advisory group, was how much time is it taking to do these assessments? I'm very grateful and pleased that our advocacy with MDE paid off on the length of the original M-STEP, and it is now shorter. It takes less time now than it did at the outset just a few years ago. But you can kind of see there the amount of time. We did take the totals at the bottom off of this page because there are some assessments that are not timed and some are timed, and we felt like trying to get to a total was probably not as clear of a piece that it should be. I wanted to touch on a few more of the questions that came up on Friday afternoon as we looked at this in Planning Committee. There's been some question around the middle school ELA assessments and looking at the genre-specific components. The middle school group has moved their standards into really 6 units that they do across the board throughout the year. And those units are close reading, literary analysis, creative, research, inform, explain, argue, persuade, and speaking and listening. So they have decided to really use common rubrics. So on middle school, where you see common assessments, to be more accurate, it's a common rubric, a common set of guidelines that set the bar for how they want to see how their students are doing. They decided to leave the tasks flexible to the teacher. So the teacher has the autonomy to design the task that they feel is the best, and the teachers have agreed to use the common rubric and the organization of the standards. Another question that we dealt with and will be in this frequently asked questions document that trustees were looking forward to taking this back first to the assessment advisory group and then going out to teachers and just checking in to see if there's congruence and accuracy in the lived experience in schools with what it looks like we have on our district plan. One of the components is that idea of what do they do when they have feedback from these assessments. In every one of the groups that I've had opportunity to speak with, they discuss that feedback and they do make adjustments. They were clear with me that they don't revamp the common assessment every year. It's not like that, but they do make adjustments. Particularly, they shared if a single question had an outcome that was very different than what they expected it to be, they would look at that. You would expect them to. And then also just observing how students are doing and how they're showing their learning. I wanted to touch on elementary math. If you can go back to the elementary page, that was another question that we've been just sorting through. The beginning of the year math and the end of year math is the EDM tool, Miss Linda, and I'm looking at you just to, because that's what I have. And then the unit assessments, which come through the course of the year, are provided. Not every teacher is required to use those. And for example, some of our project-based learning teachers might do these in a completely different order. Teachers may decide that maybe the class is not ready or needs a little bit more time. That is perfectly fine. We do allow differentiation. We have seen that most folks, though, are giving the unit assessments as they are provided. I believe I've gotten close to moving through the questions. As I've shared, on the middle school math, I wanted to touch base on a couple of questions with middle school math that have come up. The rubrics also are developed along with the common assessments in middle school math by teams of teachers. The revisions over the summer, the teachers volunteer for that work, and we appreciate those teachers who offer their time to it. And they review the achievement on the prior assessment and work together to sort out what is needed. And also they keep the Google Doc for teachers to give information who aren't on the team. All teachers are provided an opportunity to review and provide feedback on the assessment drafts so that it is a collaborative effort and a collaborative document for those that want to be involved. And of course, not every teacher's going to choose that opportunity, and we understand that. So trustees, I believe that the charge from the beginning of the year was to develop a calendar, and I believe that we have developed a general calendar that helps our parents to see what to expect at each grade level. We've also developed the backup document that covers a wide variety of other classroom endeavors or progress monitoring tools. What I believe is next, and I remember that Trustee Kelly, President Stead, Trustee Basquette, the assessment inventory that came out of that session we attended in Denver, someone attended in Denver, that has been discussed with the assessment advisory group, and they are looking forward to diving into that. That will be very in-depth work. And the goal of that tool is really to look at, is there overlap in any of these assessments? Is there a streamlining possibility? A question that I have asked, particularly at elementary school and probably appropriate at secondary also, is there an opportunity to differentiate with assessment so that if a student has already proven that they're a grade above level in reading, is there a way to perhaps assess that less often? We're looking at those questions. There is a concern from among teachers, and I share it, that we don't want to differentiate to the point of making any group of students feel different. So that will need to be discussed and sorted out as to how to go about that differentiation process, but I would like to see that occur. So I think what you can expect to see from us moving forward is a frequently asked questions document that will seek to clarify at a deeper level the testing of the frequently asked questions document to make sure that as we check in with teachers and schools at elementary, middle, and high, that we're finding congruence on the expectations. And then thirdly, trustees, I'm looking forward to our advisory group really plowing into the district assessment inventory process and getting through that as well. I believe in June is already slated your third grade reading update. I suspect there may be information there that also wraps back to inform this process. So we're proud of this work, but we recognize this is a start, and we're looking forward to our next steps together. Trustees, we have heard the desire of the trustees, and I share it, to clarify, to streamline where possible, to make the processes as simple and as easy as possible for teachers to not feel like they're a secretary entering data, but to feel like that their time is well used on monitoring students and on learning what professionals need and want to know. So I recognize that it is a beginning, and yet I'm very proud and grateful to our team and to our advisory group for this start. And so with that, we'll be happy to receive your questions, thoughts, feedback, etc.
I'm really proud of the work that everyone did to make this as good as it is today. It's worth all the time and energy spent on it. So thank you very much. So putting all these pieces together, this is our work, and in the most important thing that we do besides keeping children safe, which is educating them. So thank you, Dr. Swift.
Thank you all. We appreciate the opportunity and look forward to the next chapter. Thank you.